Hey everybody, my name is Paul Esden Jr., aka Boy Green. Welcome to my YouTube channel, to my Twitter account, and also we're streaming live on the Heavy on Jets Facebook page because, of course, on top of being Boy Green, I'm also the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. And we're randomly joining you on a Monday here to turn the page to the next week. It was a little brutal last week, so let's turn the page and look forward. And for that, we bring on a very special guest. I love Jets Buffalo Week. I've got so many great friends in Buffalo, so it's time to bring one of them on right here, right now. That is, of course, Mr. Greg Tompsett of Cover One. You can follow him on Twitter at that handle you see right below his face, and that is at Greg Tompsett, Mr. 10K himself. Greg, welcome. It's great to have Buffalo royalty here on the show.
Paul, you guys think your week was rough? It's not a great scene right now in Bill's Mafia. It was I made the point earlier. So some folks were asking me, obviously lots of humbling, embarrassing losses over a 17-year playoff drought. If you take the level of expectation into account, yesterday might have been the most embarrassing loss of like my adulthood. Like there were painful losses. It hurt more to lose the AFC Championship game. It hurt more to lose to the Texans in the playoffs. It hurt more to lose to the Jags in the playoffs in Jacksonville. Those games were much more meaningful, but from a level of expectation where, Sean McDermott had never lost to an inferior opponent. Like he doesn't win every big game, but they simply never lost to the bad teams. When you were supposed to win, they won. Those games were always across the board. They did not trip up. They did not give those games away. To have that game is just, it's really been a chink in the armor. And today is a rough scene in Bill's Mafia Twitter. It's a lot of things being questioned.
I would imagine that, and that's what happens in those cases. But I have to ask you the juxtaposition of what you just said. You lose 9-6 to the Jaguars. And still, I can't quite believe it, even though the words are coming out of my mouth. And then a couple weeks ago, you beat the Chiefs. You beat the demon, the one that had been haunting you in your closet at night as Bills fans cover up. You said the Chiefs are there, and then all of a sudden you beat that team, and then you lose to Jacksonville. Who are the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm assuming, obviously one of the more shining victories in the Jets schedule asks a similar question of how can the Titans rattle off Chiefs, Bills, Rams, and you lost to the Jets? Like, hey, what the heck's going on here?
Yeah.
So yesterday, obviously, I don't think an awful lot of us had the Broncos being up 30-0 on the Cowboys. I don't think a lot of us had the Titans being up 24-0 on the Rams. It was a weird day. There's a lot of weird games going on, a lot of very odd outings that, in the grand scheme of things, trying to step back as a Bills fan is that, hey, the season is not lost. You're 5-3, a very manageable schedule coming up. If you go back and look at last year, there was a point where the Buccaneers were 7-5 and coming off of a 38-3 whooping from the Saints. The year before, there was a point where the Chiefs were 6-4 and questioning an awful lot of things about how sustainable their system was. The year before that, there was a point where the Patriots are 6-4 and questioning an awful lot, and everybody remembers on to Cincinnati, on to Cincinnati, on to Cincinnati. There are points in seasons for even very, very good teams that you question an awful lot. So all I can tell myself is that that's what yesterday was, and that it's not as bad as losing and losing a game where you gave up 218 total yards. Like, you held them to 218 yards and no touchdowns, and you lost. It was an embarrassing, humbling day that hopefully is something I look back on laughing, but I have to tell myself that to get through the day.
Yeah, so that light at the end of the tunnel is something to look at, or you could look at the other tunnel. And a team that I bring up is the Jets is the one who took them out. The Cincinnati Bengals are like, you caught us. We were looking ahead to Cleveland, a divisional opponent. We got it. And then they got blasted once again, that time by the Cleveland Browns over the weekend. So, this team that suddenly was on top of the AFC, and they had one horrific loss to the Jets coming off that Ravens win the week before, and then you wait a week later, okay, guys, we're not going to allow that to happen, and then kaboom, they get punched in the mouth again. I mean, the other side is certainly possible as well, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, and one of a very sharp Twitter follower, I wish I could remember who it was, made a comment that one of the most concerning elements that came of this is now we don't know the floor. Like, we know the ceiling. We know what's capable and that you can put up most points scored in the NFL, least points allowed, 40 to nothing shutouts. We know that that's the capability, that can happen at any given week. They're capable of that. They're very much a emotionally high front running team. Like, if they get out on you, you're in big trouble. It's going to get ugly. What this showed is that we don't know the floor. Like, if you're capable of losing a game to Jacksonville where your defense creates a turnover, has multiple sacks, holds them to 218 yards, does not allow a touchdown, there's no recipe where that should be a loss. There's no scenario where that should be a game where it's possible to lose. So now if you're opening up that possibility, plenty of other games, and in all fairness to the Jets and the position that they're in from a franchise standpoint, that was a game that no Bills fan was realistically looking at as a real possibility to lose. And now it opens up, we have no idea what's possible, because on any given Sunday they're capable of putting out a performance like this, and now losing to the Jets is absolutely in play. That's absolutely like losing to plenty of other not great teams coming up on the schedule. There are other scenarios where, hey, what in the world is going on? Do we even know if they can regain control here and get things back together?
No question about it. Again, we're speaking with Greg Tompsett here. Greg, at least the silver lining is that Josh Allen had a great game. Have you heard enough of those jokes, by the way, over the last 24 hours?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Like, it is a really odd novelty
Strange
that Josh Allen was drafted 2 years in a row with the 7th overall pick, and that all those things are there. It's really, really odd. I think the announcer leaned into it a bit much yesterday on how huge of an anomaly this was, or how amazing of an occurrence it was. It's weird. It is weird. I certainly I didn't think that it was going to be that kind of one-sided outcome. We said in our preview show, there was no single player on the entire Jaguars roster who had a better one-on-one potential than Josh Allen and the talent he has as an edge rusher against this beleaguered Bills offensive line. So if there was somebody who's going to be able to have a game, it was him. I didn't expect that, with a sack, a fumble recovery, an interception, just a wreaking havoc all over, back and forth. But yeah, I've seen, I don't know that I've seen every meme, but I've seen an awful lot of them.
I'm sure they're going to keep coming in the middle of this interview. Again, it's at Greg Tompsett. If you do not want to send any of those right there, keep them coming.
That's fair.
Again,
That's fair.
We're streaming live simultaneously on YouTube channel. Make sure you show your support, youtube.com/BoyGreen25 on Twitter. At BoyGreen25 on Facebook. Again, Heavy on Jets Facebook page. Like, retweet, share, and follow wherever you are watching. Greg, let me bring up that point, because I think it was one of your cohorts there at the Cover One Colossus you guys got going on over there with the pressure rate. This was the third game this season. The Bills, have given up 20-plus pressures, and you mentioned that quote-unquote beleaguered offensive line, Buffalo. What's going on over there?
So obviously the first part is a series of injuries. So you have what was already, I would say, most of us saw the offensive line as acceptable. It was not a huge red flag, but it was the least good of any unit on the offense, certainly, and probably overall on the roster. Like, it was the least up to par or talented, but it was deep at least. You had multiple guys at each spot, maybe not a lot of special guys in different areas, some investment in the draft and hoping it would come together. Started out ugly against Pittsburgh, then they made a shift, brought in rookie third-round pick Spencer Brown at right tackle, who was playing really super athlete, but learning the position. Moving Darrell Williams into guard was a positive, and then John Feliciano coming back from injury. It was coming together. That's where you saw them rattle off some of those impressive wins. Things were looking pretty good. The challenge was then you all of a sudden run into an injury with Spencer Brown. He goes out. To fix that, they had to move Williams back to guard. They had to flip Feliciano from left guard to right guard. They had to bring in Ike Bacher. Then Feliciano gets hurt, and now you're bringing in a third-string guy. The combination of moves The only two parts still there in the same spot, Mitch Morrison and Deion Dawkins, just haven't been able to hold everything else together. So a ton of the things yesterday that were happening were not, don't get me wrong, there were a handful of guys that just got their butts handed to them and just got whooped on a rep. The majority of it was stunts and twists where they just couldn't get the communication and the handoffs right, and they didn't know when a guy was looping around, guys are turning, and a lot of people had the one still shot where you had one guy getting triple teamed and another guy unblocked coming straight at Josh Allen. Sadly, there was plenty of that yesterday, and it's, so part of it is, we need guys back healthy. We need the guys who were supposed to be there to be back. It already wasn't a great group to begin with. We can't afford to be playing with third and fourth string guys. Then, even if there are guys who have to come in there, hopefully you can fix some of that. These are still professional athletes. They still understand the scheme. You can coach up some of that stuff to be like, hey, you can't allow those kind of handoff mismatches here to happen. And, especially looking at about to step up to Quinnen Williams. Like, that's a guy that you cannot allow to just take over this game. You need a plan to do that. Some of those things I think are reasonable to expect to improve, but they're not all of a sudden going to get great. They're not going to all of a sudden become some amazing blocking unit. Our best goal is the first half of the season prior to yesterday was a average to slightly below average offensive line that gave enough time for Josh Allen to be able to make them look okay. And he just, solved a lot of the problems with the magic wand that he's super hard to sack and he can get away from a lot of pressure and still make throws down the field. They need to be able to get back to that where, hey, it's not great, it's not perfect, but it's good enough to give Josh enough time to make up for your woes.
Speaking of that magic wand, I've heard it's funny that, they don't even give the Bills the respect on national media when they're talking about them. But when they have any problems, everyone is the genius in the room. Oh, I've got the solution. They need to run the ball more. That's the key. So I need to hear that because I can almost feel that eye roll, Greg. I hope your eyes can get back inside your head.
Trying to strain an orbital muscle.
Yeah, of the people that said, oh, the Bills need to run the ball more. Is that really the solution by the national media that Bills people can't see right in front of their face?
So, one, let me say, that's not unreasonable to say. The Bills are not a great running team. However, at no point was being a good running team behind Zach Moss and Devin Singletary part of the plan. Josh Allen had 5 carries for 50 yards yesterday. 10 yards carries, pretty good.
Yeah.
That was the plan, is that, hey, they're going to be the pass-heaviest team in the NFL. They're going to throw the ball 70% of the time. When they run, I would prefer it to be a bit more effective. Right now, the offensive line obviously can't protect. They're obviously not road grading huge lanes to be able to run through either. When it's back healthy and back the other way, Spencer Brown and Darrell Williams were pretty powerful on the right side, opening up some okay holes. John Feliciano is a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. There's opportunities to be able to be passable, to be able to be okay, to be acceptable. Now, you add to that, there's not a decision point here where, they just need to decide to run the ball better. At no point are Zach Moss or Devin Singletary going to turn into an Alvin Kamara type player that's just creating, positive yards from nothing. Like, they need a lane to run through. And if there is one, they're perfectly sufficient NFL running backs and they can get the yards that are blocked. Right now, not only are they not being given that, they're having to break tackles 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage to get back to the line of scrimmage, which is asking a lot from guys who are not uber talented. So, one, would it be better if they could run the ball and be more effective? Sure. Is it something where I think that's the answer to much of anything? No. You have Emmanuel Sanders and Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox. Like, your eggs are in that basket, whether you like it or not. They are going to live and die by the pass. They need to get the offensive line back right so that they can live by the pass and show what they built.
Again, we're speaking of Greg Tompsett here, Cover One, Buffalo Bills guru, and you can follow him on Twitter at that very handle, at Greg Tompsett. Greg, let's look ahead to Jets-Bills week. We're very early in game week. I love doing this every Monday, having an insider from the other team join us and preview things. I never thought I would have to ask this question, but do you have a preference on who you face, Mike White or Zach Wilson? Zach Wilson, for those who are just joining us, and again, it's wild that this is even a topic or question on the show, but Zach Wilson is set to return to practice this week after suffering a PCL strain a couple of weeks ago against New England Patriots, and the Jets are hopeful inside their building that Zach Wilson will be ready to go, not only to practice, that's expected, but also for this game. But it does seem to be a question. So who do you think?
I don't. It's weird that I don't have a strong preference.
Yes, exactly. Right.
That's odd in itself that I don't have an obvious immediate answer.
Yeah, duh. Yeah.
I tweeted, mostly just being petty like I normally am on Twitter, that the worst case scenario for Jets fans was for Mike White to get injured at the moment he did, to capture that short sample size as a frozen moment in time that could never kind of prove itself out to be, that was an awful lot of checkdowns that turned into positive yardage and looked efficient, but wasn't really quite as impressive as it seemed. But it froze it in time as a moment to now it's just enough of that doubt to be like, well, I mean, do we have something here? It's just that perfect amount of doubt to like plant that seed. You can't let yourself do that. You have a front office that I believe in. Out of any of the things I was concerned with, I had joked to say, thank God you can't combine Chris Greer's ability to accumulate assets and Joe Douglas's ability to spend them and to pick players, because that would be a problem. I think Joe Douglas is a very smart football man. I think he's there. I wasn't huge on Zach Wilson, but I saw the arm talent. I saw what everybody else saw. You have to trust that, hey, yes, it's not a great start. Yes, this was kind of the worst case scenario of, hey, if you take a guy who came up in maybe a little bit of a protected bubble and put him into the cauldron of, media scrutiny that is the New York market and begin to struggle, are you setting him up to just not be ready for that kind of thing? The fact that he's hung tough and stayed in there and continued to compete and wants to come back from an injury, you got to roll with that. You got to make sure that you're giving him every opportunity there. I'm not saying I know for certain that Mike White is fool's gold and there's no possibility that you found something. It would be very Jetsy to now pivot and go over to the undrafted free agent that had his moment in the sun and throw aside a second overall pick 6 games into his career. So by all means, I'm here for it. But I'm going to assume that Joe Douglas on down and that Robert Saleh is on board, that, hey, maybe we have something. Maybe we have a really nice insurance policy. Maybe we have a high-end backup that we didn't realize we even had. Obviously, they didn't realize that they consciously traded for Joe Flacco. They clearly didn't realize it. Maybe we have something there, but that's probably what you're hoping, and that you have to go back and you have to use this season to absolutely know what you have in Zach Wilson and how you need to build around him for the future.
That is the weird aside because, on one hand, I want to give the Jets a lot of credit because in the offseason, all of us content creators and everybody else said, the Jets, you got to go get a proven veteran backup. They're like, no, we're okay. We believe in Mike White. We're like, who? Okay, I guess. And then the first opportunity presents itself where it looks like, oh, snap, you're going to have to use your backup. Robert Saleh goes up to the presser. We believe in Mike White. He's our guy. We've rode with him. 5 hours later, they trade for Joe Flacco. I'm like, how much did you believe in that guy? Then White, because of Joe Flacco's weird personal excuse, he can't show up till Friday. They have no other choice but to start Mike White. All right, let's throw the kid out there. Wait, 405 yards, the second greatest start since Cam Newton?
I think it was the most completions ever. In the first 37 completions, the most completions ever in a debut.
What in God's green earth? And then it's like, so we just lit that 6th-round pick on fire. It was just, again, it is somewhat bizarre, all of this. I do just want to throw this nugget in, though, because we're running out of time. but I do want to throw this nugget in, is that I think the thing that the crazy Jet fans are saying, ride back wide through the rest of the season, it's white time. I'm like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, people, I think part of it is the LaFleur factor. A first-time play caller is finally learning, getting more aggressive. He sees what he likes, sees what hasn't worked. He's getting more creative and aggressive. I think part of that just kind of randomly happenstance paired together with Mike White, a guy who's getting his first and maybe only shot. Who knows how the NFL works? And then that play calling, they meshed together and it was great. Zach Wilson, I don't know why everyone likes to cast. I guess it's just Jets people. I don't know, casting people aside before it all exits the building. Before we get you out of here.
I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah.
Last year, a lot of Browns fans convinced themselves they were better by removing Odell Beckham Jr.
Yes, right. I heard
the
that.
Recent issues aside,
right?
That obviously there were some chemistry issues and some things there. From a talent standpoint, you're not better. However, the combination that happened last year was okay. You were finally starting to click with a new offense. You were finally starting to click with a new system, and it did open things up a little bit to where Baker Mayfield could only focus on the reads and where he was supposed to go with the play call. You now fast forward that to the Jets. You have where, hey, all of a sudden, Moore is kind of coming into his
Corey
own.
Davis has been out the last 2 weeks.
Davis was out. You open up the play calling there of where it can go. You have a first-time play caller kind of getting his bearings and getting to where he is, and then you insert a quarterback who is only going to be capable of following the reads, doing what he needs to do. He doesn't have the capacity to ad-lib, so he's not even going to think about that, and he's now going to run the offense very regimentally to, hey, this is who's open and where I need to go. I'm going to get the ball out because I don't want anybody to hit me or to me have to improvise and run around. I want to be able to get the ball out and do what I need to do.
Exactly.
And it produced a positive result. So if there's any takeaway, it's hopefully LaFleur, Saleh, Douglas whispering to Zach Wilson's ear, like, hey, you see what he did? It's okay to trust the play call and to go with your read. You don't have to score the Patrick Mahomes issue right now. You don't have to score 14 points on every play. You don't have to go and win the day on a single play over and over again. Let the system work.
All right, real quick, last nugget here. So this is, again, we're on Monday here. Jets, Bills, what are you expecting? You could give me a score prediction or just kind of the pace. How do you anticipate this game going? It'll be the first between this continuity of Buffalo Bills versus the brand new and solid LaFleur in this era of the Jets.
So, I mean, I want to tell myself that yesterday was an embarrassing wake-up call, and that they are going to be pissed off, focused, and angry coming into this game, and that is probably the last thing that the Jets would be wishing for, and more likely hoping that this could be one of those games where you're kind of overlooking and looking ahead, and this could have been the wake-up call game. Now, they look like crap, and I don't know who's going to be back practicing this week, so I certainly will feel differently at the end of the week knowing which five offensive linemen will be out there, assuming they step back closer to what the expected unit was. I do expect a comfortable Bills win. I think they're still favored by 13 for a reason.
They are.
I don't think that's crazy. Obviously, yesterday showed anything is possible. I'm certainly not going to be betting on the Bills to cover. I'm not going to be putting my own money out there for the Bills to cover. But I do think that, how about this? I never expected to say in week 10, this is a season-defining game. This is absolutely going to be a very strong indicator of, hey, was that a blip on the radar and you now have righted the ship and everything's fine and you're back to where we expect? Or if they struggle with the Jets, all questions are fair. Everything is on the table. It is all the panic buttons that are being smashed right now that I'm telling them, hey, we're still 5-3. It's not the end of the world. Don't go crazy yet. If they struggle with the Jets, go crazy. Everything's on the table. Call for heads. It's that serious to this point that they need to right the ship. They need to reassure themselves that you are what you thought you were.
There it is. I just got to say that this is my favorite part of Jets Bills week. Again, I got so many friends over in Buffalo, great content creators, Sal Capaccio, Greg Tompsett. I've run out of all the names if I ran through them all. But Greg, before we get you out of here, go ahead. Your free platform here everywhere. And I know that you would think that this is a Jets audience. What the hell would I even waste my time with spewing any kind of Buffalo Bills stuff? But I'm seeing it already in here from a great Jets listener to all my stuff, Ron Alexander. This guy's really good, and he is. I give him all the props in the world. So throw that up on the big screen real quick. Yeah, there you go.
Appreciate you.
Really good. And so is that hair, too. That's beautiful. Again,
if you want to follow me for Bills news, for more hair care tips, you can find me at Greg Tompsett over at Cover One. We have a great time. We have a YouTube channel as well, so you'll see content over there all the time. We do a lot of other work for draft work. I host a fantasy show every Thursday night, so we do have other non-Bills related things, but the majority of our content is Bills driven. But you can find us over there. Find us on Twitter, the handle at Cover One, my handle individually at Greg Tompsett, our YouTube channel, same on Facebook. Having a good time all the time. Always going back and forth. I have a lot of friends that are Jets fans and have a good time poking back and forth. And I hope for a game where everybody comes out healthy, that's competitive and entertaining. I'm obviously hoping for a Bills victory, but I hope for a fun game that's entertaining for everybody and we can have a good time and walk away healthy so that we can continue on with the rest of our seasons.
Well, thank you, Greg. I'll be there on Sunday for the first time in a couple of years, so looking forward to that. It should be a lot of fun. Thanks for stopping by and joining us, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.